for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's the author of the book, The Journey from Failing to Healing, no other than Miss Leslie Lindsey Davis.
How
Welcome
are
to
you
Book.
doing? How are you doing, Daniel?
Fabulous, fabulous like you, Miss Leslie. And can you please introduce more about yourself? And welcome to Book 101 review for the second time around.
Well, it is such a pleasure to get to talk to you again. You are one of my favorite people, not just to listen to, but to talk to. You do such an amazing job of bringing people's books to other people's awareness, and I'm just very, very grateful. A little bit about me: I am somebody who, like many of you who are listening and watching right now, I've lived, a life, and I hit a point in my life where I decided that I was going to get healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. And out of that train wreck, I guess you could say, or awareness,
Train wreck, yes, true.
I started putting words down on paper. And many years later, several years later, I actually compiled the different words that I had put onto paper and turned it into a book called The Journey from Failing to Healing. And the central theme of the entire book is that we never fail. It's a first attempt in learning. And every time we try something, we pick ourselves up or we don't pick ourselves up. But it's a first attempt in learning. We're not looking for perfection, we're looking for progress. But if we're going on a journey to get healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally, and we're doing the hard work of the hard work, we are also healing. We are discovering healthy emotions and learning to love ourselves. And that's what the book is about. It's about going on that journey of accepting that we're not failing, but we are healing.
Miss Leslie Lindsay Davis, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world. How do you think it is essential to redefine what failure means?
Well, I think that it is not just essential, but imperative that we not look
True.
at the word fail according to the way that Webster defines it, which means that we have failed. We did not do something. We are stopped. Instead, if we will look at fail as simply this was our first time at trying something, and whenever we are trying something or learning something, we're going to make mistakes, right?
Yes.
We are going to learn from our mistakes. I mean, it's like Edison said one time, he had 99 attempts to make a light bulb, and finally the 100th one worked. Can you imagine if we have a small child who is learning how to crawl or to walk, and the first time they attempted it, they were not successful, and we told them, okay, that's it, stop, you can't ever do it again. That child would grow into an adult and live their entire life simply laying there on the floor because they would believe that they didn't need to try again. So if we can redefine this word fail, it helps us, especially if we have been told by other people and we believe what other people have told us, that we are a failure. We can start looking at our life, our views, our past in a different way and say, you know what? Yes, I did fail. Thank you so very much. It was my
Yes.
first attempt in learning. I'm trying. And tomorrow I'll do something different. Perfection is overrated. Let's aim for progress.
True. Very well said, Miss Leslie. Beautifully articulated. People don't afraid to commit mistake or failure. You will learn from it and you will become better in the future. So what is the first step someone should take when dealing with feelings of failure or disappointment?
if you're well, the feeling of failure and the feeling of disappointment are two different things. If we are looking the at not being successful at doing something, and that's what I want people to start doing, instead of seeing that they failed at something, say, well, I wasn't successful this time, but that doesn't mean I won't be successful next time, or I won't be more successful next time. Let's simply remove, if we need to, remove the word failure from our vocabulary, or make certain that anytime we use the word, we are seeing it as a first attempt in learning. Disappointment is that feeling when we are trying to achieve something or we are desiring something and we either fall short or we don't receive it. That is a consequence of something external. We are not in control of anything external of ourselves. We're only in control of ourselves. So we can experience disappointment. Yes, I'm very disappointed that I did not win the award. Yes, I am disappointed I did not get the job promotion. And let's simply allow ourselves, as part of that healing, that healthy emotion and learning to love ourselves, let's allow ourselves to feel the disappointment. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel rejection, abandonment, any of those negative emotions. It's okay. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to sit there and say, I have been rejected, I have been abandoned, therefore I am a Webster defined failure. No, no. Simply because you were passed over, didn't receive, or were rejected for whatever reason has nothing really to do with you. It's all to do with the other person. So instead, acknowledge what you're feeling and then let's move forward.
Yes, people try and try and try until you succeed. So, can you describe your personal journey from failing to healing?
Well, like many people, I had a moment back in 2016 that it was like I was drowning. I was drowned by a tsunami and I was struggling to get to the surface. And I tell people that it was in that moment that I realized that God was waiting for me to just look up because I had nowhere else to go. I had nothing else to turn to. And in that moment, I saw that He is not a stern, mean, ugly, cruel person. He's a kind person who wants nothing more than for me to be the very best version of myself. And as I started developing a relationship with God, and as I started listening to Him speaking to me, that was when I really went on the journey. And this is what the book talks about. It's 12 different segments of my life where I believed that I was failing, only to look back or to realize in the moment I was not failing, that God was right there. And all I needed to do was start healing, start learning to love myself. And as a consequence of being able to love myself, I was able to accept the love that God had for me. And as I accepted the love that God had for me, it became less and less imperative that I be loved by other people. Because honestly, if we can love ourselves and if we can allow God to love us, the love that we receive from other people is amazing, yes, but it is not consuming. We're not constantly searching for that. So the book is 12 different segments of where I recognized that my life was falling apart. But looking back, I saw where God had always been there. And then I pick it up and move it forward and help the reader to apply my lessons to their life so that they can heal and have those healthy emotions and love themselves.
So, Miss Leslie, can you give an example of how reframing a failure helps someone learn to love themselves more fully?
The best example that I can give you is about a year ago, I was doing a talk at a homeless men's shelter. And this young man was in there, and he was in a program because he was struggling with drug addiction. And he had shared with me before he even knew that I was speaking. He had shared with me, that he had failed and he had, really struggled, and he was never going to get out of this addiction. And he was separated from his family as a consequence of it, and he was very lost, very lost. And I spoke about the wounds that we have that people cannot see, the wounds of rejection, of abandonment, of abuse, the wounds that are not physically visible. And I talked about how we are not failing, that instead it's a first attempt in learning, that, we make mistakes, we pick ourselves up. It's okay. Mistakes are not on purposes, they're simply mistakes. And when I ended my talk, I went up to him specifically and I said to the audience, the next time someone tells you that you have failed, I want you to lean in. I want you to reach out and shake their hand and smile and say, yes, thank you. This was my first attempt in learning. And he shared with me much later that in that moment, he realized he wasn't a failure, he was learning. And as a consequence of being free to learn instead of focusing on failing, he actually was able to move his life forward and get out of the program and get reunited with his family.
So, Miss Leslie, in your opinion, what is the biggest obstacle people face when trying to heal emotionally?
Not being honest with themselves, not listening to themselves, not taking the time to acknowledge their honest emotions, because unfortunately, we live in a world of people who either don't have the time, don't have the emotional bandwidth, or don't want to hear what you're really feeling. And instead, they say to you, you shouldn't be feeling that way. And then you start doubting, well, why am I really feeling this way? And what that sets up is tension inside of your body, because your body is saying, this is what I feel. And your mind is saying, but I'm being told I shouldn't feel that way. So the best way to get past that feeling of failure and start developing those healthy emotions and learning to love yourself is to start having honest written conversations with yourself. Acknowledge your true honest emotions, no matter how socially unacceptable they may be. They are your honest emotions. When we stop lying to ourselves, we are able to start loving ourselves just as we are. And as I talk about in the book, God already knows the truth. He knows what you're really thinking and really feeling. He's waiting for you to stop lying to yourself. So let's stop lying to ourselves so that we can heal, that we can live with healthy emotions, and we can love ourselves.
So, Miss Leslie, how can we teach younger generations to embrace failures as a valuable learning experiences?
Well, that's easy. Simply tell them, yes, you did fail, but fail stands for first attempt in learning. This is your first attempt in learning, or as I like to say, my second, third, fourth, 99th attempt in learning. You're not expected to be perfect. Nobody is going for perfect. We're looking for progress. If we can tell them, you did not fail, this was your first attempt in learning. If instead of framing things from a point of failure, we frame them from a point of view of learning, of moving forward, of making progress, then we remove that burden, that fear that they're not measuring up.
So, what do you think society often views failure negatively, and how can we change this narrative?
We can change the narrative by correcting people who try and throw out failure as being a negative thing. If we can simply say, when somebody starts talking about a failure, We can say, yep, you're right. It was their first attempt in learning. Of course, it was a failure. Yeah, they were learning. And if we can
Yes.
very matter of factly state that repeatedly, people are going to start picking it up. And the more people we can get to pick it up, the more it's going to move through, like ripples on a lake. It's going to move through society. But it starts with one. And if one person can say the next time they hear somebody talking about failure, if one person can say, yeah, you know what, you're right, it is a failure. It was the first attempt in learning. So, we're not expecting perfection, we're looking for progress. Then that person that they're speaking to is going to start reframing that in their mind. And then it's going to start moving. But it starts with one. It starts with one person. The moment they hear someone speaking about a failure, saying, yes, you're right. It is a failure. It's a first attempt in learning. We're looking for progress, not perfection.
Enjoy the journey, people, because you will learn and learn from it. So, how does self love influence the process of healing after experiencing setbacks?
When we love ourselves, we understand that we are not perfect. We have room for ourselves to make mistakes. We have room for ourselves to learn and to grow. And we understand that every time we try something, that we're making progress. And if we love ourselves, we can take the time to experience the disappointment and acknowledge the disappointment. And then we can start moving forward. It's when we start fighting the feelings of disappointment that we are not loving ourselves. We are denying what we are truly and honestly feeling. So when we love ourselves, we can take the time to experience what we're truly feeling when we don't quite achieve what it was that we wish to achieve. And then we're able to recognize, what? I made a little bit of progress, or maybe I didn't make any progress. Maybe I went 10 steps back, but that's okay. I can try again. Let's embrace trying. Let's stop embracing perfection.
Definitely. So, Miss Leslie, what advice would you give someone who struggles with perfectionism and fears making mistakes?
I would ask them, whose voice is it that you are hearing? Really and truly, what is the name of the person who is speaking to you, who is telling you that you must be perfect? And then I would say to them, is perfection true? Is perfection really achievable? And then I would say to them, tell that person, go sit down, be quiet. I've got this. And I would
Definitely.
suggest that they have a written conversation with themselves about what they're truly feeling in that moment. But the most important thing someone can do who is struggling with perfectionism is to acknowledge whose voice, because it is a person from your past, acknowledge whose voice you are hearing that's telling you that you are not enough, that's telling you that you're less than, that's telling you that you will never achieve their unachievable level of perfection. I want you to name that person and then tell that person, go sit down. I've got this. Be quiet.
Yes, indeed. So, Miss Leslie, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
I am almost finished. In fact, I was working on this morning, and right before we started talking, I'm working on the workbook for my next book, which is Learning to Trust Your Emotions, talking about how other people invalidate our emotions and it sets off that tension based on what color is my shirt. So I'm hoping to have that ready to be out into the world before the end of April. And then the next thing that I will do, I don't know yet. It will depend on what starts speaking to me. But this book, Learning to Trust Your Emotions, I've been working on it for about 2 years off and on. And interestingly, I was fighting getting it written because I believed that that my message wasn't important and that I needed to fight through and become a better writer, striving for perfection. And I had to say, no, you're great. You're amazing. Just get the words down on paper and go.
You're amazing, Miss Leslie. Keep up the good work and looking forward for that book. You are most welcome to come back and let's talk about it. And thank you for your advice as well. So, how does embracing vulnerability help in the journey from failing to healing?
Embracing vulnerability helps you in that journey from failing to healing because you release the need to be perfect. When you take off, the bumper guards in the bowling alley so that the ball always travels down the middle of the lane, you recognize that sometimes the ball's going to go bouncing off here and it's going to go bouncing off there. And we simply say, you know what, it did. It is what it is. When we start releasing the need, those voices that tell us that we must be perfect, that we are less than, then we can really become vulnerable to ourselves and understand that what we are feeling is what we are feeling, and nobody else gets a vote. No one else gets a vote. Our honest emotion is our honest emotion, and that is okay. I don't care how beautiful or how ugly it is. If you are experiencing great joy, when people are trying to say, well, you shouldn't be so happy, you know what? Just leave them alone. Ignore their comments. Experience the great joy. If you're experiencing, the unbelievable weight of grief and sadness in a moment when people are saying, aren't you over that yet? Don't listen to them. Experience the weight of that grief and sadness. Experience the full spectrum. Be vulnerable to yourself. Hear what your body is telling you. And then you'll
Yes.
start releasing that need to be perfect. And you'll discover that you have also gone on a journey from failing to healing and you're living your very best life.
Yes, people don't care of what people say about you and live at the moment. So before we wrap up our discussion, Miss Leslie, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Music 101, in its third season. People, third season. Music 101 is created to empower music itself and legendary icon in the music industry. So please do listen Music 101 wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Leslie, what is the most important message you hope readers will take away from the journey from failing and healing?
The most important message I hope that they take away is it's not too late to start learning to love yourself and creating healthy emotions so that you are able to love yourself. It is not too late. We can do this. But most importantly, I want them to understand that they are enough exactly as they are. There's nothing wrong with them. They are not broken. They are enough exactly as they are.
Definitely, Miss Leslie Lindsey Davis. Thank you so much for sharing your books to the world and looking forward for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books? Miss Leslie?
Yes. Yes. The easiest way to find out anything about me and to even connect with me is to go to my website, which is youcan'teatlove.com, or just search for me on Amazon or where most books are sold, Leslie Lindsey Davis, and you will discover all of my books.
Certainly, yeah. So people, let's support Miss Leslie Lindsay Davis because if we support her, I've said more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So Miss Leslie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
Modicon people, see you soon.